I think one of the most dangerous situations was when I had to utilize deadly force against somebody. And it wasn't necessarily dangerous for me. It was the decision that was dangerous because of the climate that we live in. There was a situation where a guy had called the police station and threatened to kill a cop, calls multiple times and he hangs up. Then fast forward, he goes into a local restaurant, threatens people with a knife. Some of my partners show up. They try to take him into custody. It doesn't work. He flees out the back door and they can't find him. So then I get to work the next morning. This guy going up onto the freeway, running back and forth in between traffic. And there was a large belief that it was the same guy that threatened to kill police officers and was threatening people with a knife. I hear him over the radio say, we tried to utilize our taser, ineffective. I heard him say again, taser deployed again, ineffective. So then I hear 40 millimeter deployed, ineffective. I hear him say it again, 40 deployed, ineffective. As I'm driving to the scene, I'm thinking about all the different levels of use of force that I've been trying to try to take this guy into custody. I get out of my car. I'm running up and this guy is running back and forth between people. And this guy, he starts running at me with a knife and he's holding the knife to his head. So I try to de-escalate. Hey, sir, put the knife down. And he's not listening to anything I'm saying. So
this might be an uncomfortable question, but I don't have a problem asking. I don't think you'll have a problem answering it. Those that in the department that were kind of looking down on you for being the dancing cop, for being jovial, was that divided by race?
I don't think so. I don't think it was divided by race. I can't say. Now, have there been some racial things that I've heard? Yes, from officers. But I've come to learn a lot of it comes from ignorance and just a lack of understanding of people. It's like sometimes people will say ignorant comments and don't even realize that they're being ignorant. I've just learned over the years, stop getting so wound up over what people say in their ignorance and just try to give people more grace, compassion, and mercy, even when it's not deserved, because I'm not the most perfect person either. And there's been a lot of things that God has given me grace, compassion, and mercy for. So I have to learn to look at it through that lens. And I think with the dancing cop stuff, I think it was, again, another place of ignorance. It's the profession is evolving. The profession is becoming more, you have to play the game of chess instead of checkers. Before body cams, before we had a lot of this oversight, officers were able to go out there and just take names and numbers without that much oversight. But now that we're in the spotlight of the community, it's forced us to be more intelligent about how we make our moves. And for me, I've learned, hey, go out there, serve the community, and don't do it out of a place of insincerity. Be sincere about it. Go out there, get to know them, be you, be yourself. And as I started to do that, I had to realize that I may not see the rewards right now, but if I keep doing this for the right reasons, over time, it will pay off. And it's funny you bring that up because now I ran into a friend of mine yesterday as I was at my son's baseball practice. And he's a police officer. He's a deputy with LA County Sheriff's Department. And he's been following me. He was following me before I actually knew who he was. And so he said, Ryan, I've been watching your journey. And it's crazy because I remember early on, people would talk trash in law enforcement. They would say all these things about you, but you stayed steady and you developed such a great reputation. You have so many influential people that you've had on your show. And now it's cool to see people turn around and they actually him bringing you up like, man, I follow this guy, he does this, and that. And so I think over time, I've actually gotten way more allies within the profession of law enforcement. And a lot of the haters have dissipated over the years only because I think they've really got to see my heart. My heart was never about promoting. My heart was never about being somebody that everybody looked at. My heart was all about how do I bridge this gap between law enforcement and the community, because I want our communities to be safe, but I also want my kids, if they want to go into the profession of law enforcement, I want them to be proud to go into a profession as opposed to be ashamed for what they do.
Right. And this is also a leadership principle because growing up, we talk about peer pressure with our kids. Well, just because we became adults doesn't mean peer pressure stops. It doesn't matter what occupation you're in, there's peer pressure. And let me tell you, it's extreme. Well, you know, but for our listeners, it's very, very strong in the law enforcement culture. When I came on back in 75, before you were even born, I'm pretty sure, the old guys, nobody trusted you. They had to get you in a position and kind of push you to do something that might be questionable and then see what happened. If you didn't rat them out, now all of a sudden you're starting to be accepted by the older folks. And I'm not criticizing that because
different time, it's just a different time period.
Yeah. You sticking to your integrity and your morals and what you believe in is right is certainly not always the easiest thing to do. I mean, you don't want to be ostracized by your comrades in arms. You folks hear me talk about the law enforcement culture all the time. It's a brotherhood and a sisterhood. It really is. I've never met Ryan in person. We've talked on the phone, and we're doing an interview together. I will meet him later this year out in California. We're both going to a conference together. I won't say the name of it, but you might figure it out here. We call this a clue, but it's just amazing what goes on, and to be able to stand up to your beliefs and still get along with everybody. That's, in my book, that's a sign of a leader. I wasn't always successful with it. People disagree with you, and I'm sure they have with you, and I'm sure they will continue to disagree.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And yes, my goal is, I always tell people, look, my goal is not to get you to like everything about law enforcement. My goal is not to get you to wear a thin blue line shirt or flag. My goal is just to get you to see a different perspective. And if you can do that, then we both win. Over time, man, I really just believe I've been able to win way more people over. And it's exciting to see. And it's not just law enforcement, like even members of the community. I remember when I first started making videos online, man, I would have so many people in the community that hate cops that would come out and be negative and this and that. Yeah. But I give it to them because they still stuck with me over time. And those people started becoming some of my biggest ambassadors. They would be defending me to a whole bunch of people. And they would be, oh, man, you don't know Ryan. Ryan will call it as it is, which kind of leads to another important part of my journey is that one of the things I've done that hasn't always been popular, but it's becoming more acceptable is calling balls and strikes when it comes to the performance of how we do as law enforcement. And it's not even about being Monday morning quarterbacks, because you and I both well know we have one of the most difficult jobs in the world, one that is very, very hard to scrutinize because you are not the person that's having to make that split-second decision. But it's also one of our Achilles heel because we don't come out and crucify other people when they mess up. And it's not about crucifying people. It's more so just about being honest. And so that's one of the things I've also done is when we have messed up in law enforcement, I'll call it out. But I'll do it after a lot of research and also measuring it with my own training experience and also measuring it up with the legal standard of which somebody will be tried in court, which is, would a reasonable officer with the same amount of time, the same experience, what decisions would they make? And so a lot of times when I'm judging an officer's behavior, it's based on the legal standard, not just my personal opinion. But because I've done that, it's garnered so much more trust from the community. So that way, when I'm able to break down a video that when officers use force that may look bad, but it's justified, they're willing to stick around with me and listen because they know, hey, he's called him out before. So even though this may look bad, I understand it from the other perspective that he's given me now because I know he's not completely just biased about because he's a police officer.
Right. And you guys, you can see these videos on Breaking Barriers United. I started watching one. Every time I've put it on 3 times and something interrupts me every time. It's a lady on there talking. I think it's about cops should not carry guns. Is that the one?
Yeah. That's for the Jubilee one. I was doing some breakdowns on the Jubilee stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't watched that, but I mean, I like it that you're applying common sense here. That's a big part of law enforcement. There's no such thing as luck. There's no such thing as coincidence. Things happen for a reason. And are cops perfect? They're expected to be perfect, but the reality is, no, we're not. We still make mistakes. It could be, you could go to the same situation several times, and we have personal problems just like you do. Maybe your wife's been on your case, or maybe you're going through a divorce, or there's been a death in the family, or one of your kids is not living up to your expectations, or all the little things that we all go through in our families, and we're having a bad day, and we might handle a situation wrong. Maybe our fuse is a lot shorter one day. It's not supposed to be. But the reality is we're human. So
it's you and I could go on the exact same call, but the way the call will be handled could be vastly different just based on our life experiences. Right. But yet the community expects us to handle it the same exact way. And I always have to tell people it's impossible. Why? Because every single police officer, even though we may have similar training, it doesn't prompt the same humanistic response. So we have to be aware of that. And that's why, again, goes back to education, just educating the community about these things. And every time I do seminars with community members who have no clue about what law enforcement is about, they walk out with a whole new mindset that they never understood. They're like, wow, it makes so much sense. And that's why I tell police, look, we can do so much better when it comes to educating people. And when you do, you will get the support you need. It's tragic, man. There's recently a case out here in LA County where an officer, he's actually been federally prosecuted and charged and found guilty for a level 1 use of force, which was actually deemed to be justified initially. The new sheriff came in town. The new sheriff actually brings it back up. And now, because of the political pressures, they allow the attorney general to pick up the case. They charged him. He was prosecuted, and he's going to probably do 10 years in federal prison if he doesn't beat the appeal. And it's all based on a level 1 use of force, which, if you ask me, was justified. The reason I bring that up is because those are reasons why these dance videos or these interactions with the community, these humanizing yourself, those are the positive deposits that I'm talking about, because you're going to have a situation like this arise, and you're going to need to be able to make a withdrawal from the community, say, hey, look, we are who we are. We're not corrupt. We're not this. This just happens to be a one-off incident, and it's not as bad as you think it is. And so that's why that work is important.
What is, in California, what's level 1 use of force?
Level 1 use of force is controlling force. Like if I'm on a call for a disturbance and somebody's not complying with me, it's equivalent to me just grabbing them and utilizing controlling force to get them to the ground, or utilizing a less than lethal use of force, like a pepper spray, which is what he actually used, pepper spray. And the lady still didn't cooperate, so he slammed her down to the ground, and they filed a civil suit, and then that ultimately went to a criminal case federally.
I'm going to guess that's the sheriff in L.A. County.
It sure is. How'd you know?
Yeah, how'd I know? I live on the East Coast, and even I heard about him.
Oh, man. I know.
That's a whole nother topic that we're not going to talk about today. So what year did you start breaking barriers?
2000.
Wow, so you've been going 10 years with that thing.
10 years.
And it's continuing to grow.
Continuing to grow. I've been able to do this full time for the last 3 years, which has been awesome. And they say most small businesses fail within the first 5 years. And so we made it through a pandemic. We've made it. God has still been good to us. It's been a phenomenal journey, but it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, that's my wife and I tried for years and years, different small businesses on the side. She was a registered nurse, and I've been a cop since I was a baby, I think. And they all failed, but you don't give up. You can be optimistic. Something else is going to come along. And my partner and I, my old DEA partner, we have our keynote speaking business. This is our 10th year of traveling around the world.
Amazing.
That's what I say. And the podcast, I'm coming up on the end of the 4th year, getting ready to start the 5th year here in June.
It's amazing.
It's just amazing the doors that the good Lord opens. And be careful what you ask for, because he'll answer.
You said something earlier about the glass being half full, and I've always said I'm a guy that looks at the glass half full. But I have a friend of mine named Jorge, and when he was 16 years old, was shot in his back, and he's been paralyzed ever since. And Jorge's probably now in his 50s, I would say, late 40s, early 50s. But the dude is always positive, always positive. And one time he came to visit me. We were hosting a conference, and he came to speak at the conference. And when he got into town, his wheelchair caught a flat tire. So he's like riding around on the lane, and dude had a positive mentality. He's like, man, it's not a big deal. Let's just go find a tire shop. So we're driving around town. We find a tire shop. They put air in it, and we're back up and running. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, man, if I was you, I would just be so mad. Man, I'm traveling all the way across the country. I'm tired. I got a flat tire, so forth. And he was just so positive. So then I asked him the question. I said, hey, man, how is it that you could always look at the glass as being half full? He said, Ryan, most people look at the glass as either being half full or half empty. He said, but over time, I've learned every single day that I'm just grateful to have a glass. He said, because some days you can put water in it, and some days that glass might be empty, but as long as you have a glass, you have the opportunity to put water in it and fill it up. And I was, wow, it changed my whole outlook. And so for me, I try to live my life like that. Despite what set of circumstances you're in, despite what you're going through, just be grateful to have the glass, because you can always put water in it. Some days it might get full, some days it'll be a little bit, but as long as you got that glass, it gives you hope.
Wow. That's pretty deep stuff there, brother. I was just thinking yesterday, my wife and I, we went out to dinner here in Orlando. You can drive. They've got a main street that goes through Orlando Airport, and it's just a mess. But that's how you get to the other side of the airport without having to go all the way around, the long way around. And we're coming back, and we're coming through the airport there, and then we're getting ready to go up to this ramp, and all of a sudden traffic stops, and it's never stopped that far back from the red light. Like, crap, what's going on? Well, it turns out there was an accident on the other side of the road, and they had to shut the road down. And that's the main road going over to terminals A and B at Orlando Airport. That's the two main terminals. So down here at the red light, there's cops that just blocked off the traffic because there's no reason to let people go up there. They can't get through. So my patience, that's one thing I pray for all the time, is because I don't have a lot of patience. People think I do here on the show, but my fuse is about that long.
Oh, you're a cop. It's the same thing.
Oh, my goodness. And so my wife and I were in there, and I'm fussing, I'm ranting and raving. And she's, where you got to be? You don't have anything to do. We're working on the pipe. She's editing. I'm editing last night. I said, the world is not going to come to end if it takes us an extra 30 minutes to get home. And I'm thinking, first of all, I hate it when my wife's right. which is most of the time. But she was actually right. And then I'm trying to cut over in this lane. Well, this lane's moving faster. Well, then I get over to a lane where now I'm forced to turn left. And I know there's no way to get out. I got to come back in this long line to get in traffic and get back to where I was going originally. And I just took a big, deep breath. And we went down that way and just stopped letting it bother me. And it was no time. It cost us probably 20 minutes extra.
Yeah.
But just her positive outlook on me when I'm going off the deep end. Because, brother, let me tell you, you see things in traffic here in Orlando you won't see anywhere else in the United States.
That's hard to believe, man, because LA, man, is like, my goodness.
Y'all have extreme volume. These people are out there by themselves just doing stupid things. It's just, I've never seen anything.
Yeah, that would probably drive me nuts for sure.
Well, let me ask you, when you were, so as a cop in Chino, what, in your almost 13 years now, what is the most dangerous encounter you've had in your career?
Well, that's a great question. Most dangerous encounter I've had. Well, obviously, I've been in some physical use of forces with people. Nothing to ever to sense where I felt like I was going to lose a physical encounter. I think probably one of the most dangerous situations was when I had to utilize deadly force against somebody. And it wasn't necessarily dangerous for me. It was the decision that was dangerous because of the climate that we live in. Years ago, probably about 5 years ago now, there was a situation where a guy had called the police station and threatened to kill a cop. And so he threatens to kill a cop. He calls multiple times and he hangs up. Then fast forward, he goes into a local restaurant, threatens people with a knife. Some of my partners show up. They try to take him into custody. It doesn't work. He flees out the back door and they can't find him. So then I get to work the next morning. I'm the corporal at the time. I'm leading the briefing. And I knew that I could hear the radio. I'm listening to the radio in the locker room and I could hear a lot of stuff going on, like they're looking for somebody. So I called dispatch and I said, hey, what are they working on? And she gives me the same details I just shared with you. So I get to briefing. I said, hey, look, we don't have time to go through everything. Just get out there. Let's go help our partners out. Let's still graveyard team. Let's go relieve them so they can go home. So as I'm driving to the scene, I'm listening to the radio and I can hear multiple callers are saying there's this guy going up onto the freeway, running back and forth in between traffic. And there was a large belief that it was the same guy that threatened to kill police officers and was threatening people with a knife. So I'm listening to it. I hear my partners over the radio say, hey, look, we tried to utilize our taser, ineffective. Then I heard them say in their mind again, hey, taser deployed again, ineffective. So then I hear them, hey, 40 millimeter deployed, ineffective. Then I hear them say it again, 40 deployed, ineffective. So in my mind, as I'm driving to the scene, I have this mental checklist. Hey, check, check, check. And what I'm saying check for is I'm thinking about all the different levels of use of force that have been trying to take this guy into custody, because as we know, that's going to come into play when it comes to having to utilize whatever force we do. Mm-hmm. So finally, we get onto the freeway. As we get onto the freeway, traffic is stopped. I get out of my car. I'm running up. There's probably about 5 of us. And this guy is running back and forth between people. And this guy, he starts running at me with the knife and he's holding the knife to his head. So I try to de-escalate. Hey, sir, put the knife down. And he's not listening to anything I'm saying. So then he turns away from me. And as he turns away from me, he starts to run to the other side of the freeway. And on the other side of the freeway, there's a slanted offside. You know how on the freeways, sometimes you got that big old hill that is like I can't remember what they call it, the ice plants or whatever. So he's running towards that hill, but at the top of that hill, there's all these bystanders that are watching this going on. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, if he starts to climb this hill towards these bystanders, we don't have containment at the top of this hill. And it's not going to take much to get up there. Mm-hmm. So there's no containment up there. And if he starts to climb up where all the bystanders are at, this guy is clearly not obeying any instructions. We've utilized less than lethal options that were ineffective. If he gets up there and we start trying to utilize deadly force while he's going up this hill, that's not going to be good. So I said in my mind, well, we have legal means to utilize deadly force at this moment in time, even though he's running away from me, but he's running towards people. And based on also what I know as it pertains to the law, utilizing deadly force and using your gun, you have to be aware of your backstop and beyond. Well, he had a great backstop because it's the side of a hill. So I'm like, if we're going to use deadly force right now to prevent another threat, let's do it. So I chose to utilize deadly force. I pulled the trigger of my gun. He goes over the berm as he's getting ready to climb up. We converge on him. He's still moving around. They end up tasing him. The taser works. And we're finally able to put him in handcuffs. And we realized that he had a knife was duct taped to his hand. So we removed the knife and he ends up surviving the whole ordeal. But the reason I say it was so dangerous was because the moment I was the only one that decided to shoot. And now I'm the one that is, why were you the only one that decided to shoot? Was it the right decision? And now the first thing that they do is obviously they take me back to the police station. I have an attorney come in. Before that, my sergeant comes. Hey, how many rounds did you shoot? Which direction did you shoot? Is the suspect outstanding? And are you okay? do that. They take my gun, go back to the station. The attorney comes in, and the first thing the attorney says, she says, well, you got two things going for you. Number one is you missed. So I missed the guy. It was probably about a 15 to 20 yard shot that I was making with my handgun. So I ended up missing, but it obviously caused him to go down because he started hearing that, and now this is on the ground. So she said, number one is you missed, but number two is you're a black police officer and he's a white guy. And that shook me to my core, because it made me think that had I been a white police officer and this be a black guy, even though I'm completely justified at what I did, the optics of me shooting at somebody running away could have just told this whole different other story. So obviously time goes on. It takes a year for them to investigate a shooting. Everything was justified. Everything was fine. But it was terrifying because you can't talk to nobody. At that moment in time, it's almost like this wedge of division between me and my leadership at my department. And it wasn't because that they didn't like me. It was just because their concerns at that time are not my concerns. Their concerns were we within the law, and did he make the right decisions? And then I have an attorney that's telling me, don't say anything. Let me represent you. Let me do my job. You don't need to say anything because you have body cam and multiple witness statements that describe exactly what you did. You also made a spontaneous statement, which I didn't realize at the time, which was as soon as I fired, I said, he's running towards those people up there. And so that spontaneous statement actually shows your mindset. So you don't need to say anything. But then on the other side of that, I have a department that's saying, give us a statement. And so I'm in this place that I've never been before. I'm worried because I have a family, I have kids, and you hear about these things. And so I say that was probably the most dangerous, not in the sense of physical danger, but it made me realize that this job is so dangerous from many different vantage points. And if you make the wrong decision, not only could it cost you your life or somebody else's your life, but it could cost you your freedom as well. And so that's probably one of the things that stands out in my mind that has happened in my career, that it's really made me not take for granted what officers do.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Completely different from what you thought as a young man, huh?
Way different. Way different. And honestly, it gives me that credibility to talk to other people when I talk about utilizing deadly force and just even the physiological changes that your body goes through. I remember when I fired the gun, it didn't sound that loud. It was almost muffled. So my hearing went down. So the audio exclusionatory kicked in and I couldn't hear it. Then I can see my slide almost in slow motion, which was crazy.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's crazy how your body physiology responds to stress.
Right. You develop tunnel vision, the whole ball of wax.
100%. 100%.
It's crazy. Quite honestly, it's not something that human beings were ever supposed to go through. I mean, no. We've just become such a violent world, not just here in the United States. It's worse in other parts of the world. But here in the United States, we got the same problems. So another question is, what event in your law enforcement career are you most proud of?
Dang, that's a good one. Honestly, I would say it's going to sound so cheesy and so corny, but probably that dance that I did. And the reason I'm most proud of it is because they tried to talk me out of being myself for many years. Mm-hmm. And despite what they tried to talk me out of, it actually is one of the things that really put me in the position I'm at now. I'm not in the position that I'm in now because I did a viral dance. It's just part of the link in the chain in the story. But without that moment to reflect back, that moment for me was an opportunity to share with the world of who my heart really was and what my heart was about. So going against the grain and doing something that was uncomfortable, all to share the world what law enforcement is all about, and that we're not all robots, that we're not all put on a line and put together like a transformer. For me, that was everything. And it really motivated me, or it really motivated others to be themselves. I had so many officers. You can look up now online on YouTube, dancing cops, and you see them come up all over the place now.
Yeah.
And people email me, DM me, man, thank you because you get it. And then I also pushed the norms even when it came to social media. They ended up changing our policy at my police department on social media because they saw the value of it. So being almost a maverick when it came to pushing these cultural norms, it's probably one of the most proudest things that I am happy to have achieved in my career. And it's funny, I shared earlier, when I went into that SRO spot, nobody wanted to do it. But when I came out of it, I think we had 6 or 7 people put in for that spot, which was really, really huge. It was a competitive spot when I left. And so that, made me proud to know that I did my job.
I'm smiling because I'm watching the videos you're talking. You're doing a little MC Hammer there, I see.
Yeah, that's right.
If you listeners haven't seen this, just Google dancing cop Ryan Tillman or just Ryan Tillman. You'll find it. He's got all the full uniform. He's got his boots on. You got your tack vest on. got your gun belt, everything's on, and the crowd is loving it. They're loving it.
Man, yeah, it was funny. It's like I said, it's on all over the place. I have a screenshot, but on Facebook, it was over 100 million views. And I checked that out, was like 2 years ago. And so I know it's probably over that.
Wow. That's why, well, I'm looking at this one right here is 14.5 million.
Yeah.
And this says 5 years ago. So,
and the thing is, and that's just on one, so many different people put it up on their pages and stuff. So it's great. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
That will live forever, man. That will live forever. It's still trending. I mean, people hit me up. It will come up on their timeline sporadically and people will DM me. And then, or sometimes I'll speak and people, I just put 2 and 2 together. I didn't realize you're the guy. Yeah. I saw this video years ago. So it's kind of funny.
I love it. I love it. There's a lot of law enforcement that listens to the show here, and we're not taken away from the danger that law enforcement faces on a daily basis. This is just a man who found a way to communicate with the kids. I'm like you. I'd never want to be a school resource officer, and I'm not ditching those people for doing it. It's just not what I ever wanted to do as a police officer. But there's a lot of things I did as a cop I never wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It just kind of goes with the job here. The book that you've got out, let me pull it up here on the iPad.
Oh, Happy Eyes?
Yeah. Because here it is, everybody. And I'll put a link on it on the Game of Crime page. Just click on the book list, and you'll see his book up there. I haven't read the book, but I did read the short portion I could on Amazon. Can you tell me what happened to Adrian?
Great question, man. So Adrian was one of the students that I was mentoring. He ended up getting shot one summer while school was out, and I ended up just happened to be the first officer on scene. I'm plugging his chest, trying to prevent him from dying. He gets rushed to the hospital. The doctors say he had a slim to none chance of surviving because he had lost so much blood. His grandmother shows up that day at the hospital, and I never met his grandmother. His grandmother never met me, but she saw my name badge and she's like, "Are you Tillman?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "How'd you know?" She says, "Well, my grandson talks about you all the time. He talks about how you've changed his life and how he wants to be a police officer." And the reason I was significant was because his family hated cops. I actually arrested his dad on multiple occasions. His family, they were just what we call frequent flyers. So for her to say that, it didn't make me realize how much of an impact I made in this kid's life. Well, fast forward, the next day I'm speaking at a school. I had already expected him to pass away through the night. I go and call his mom, and I'm already bracing for her to tell me he didn't make it through the night. The phone rings, and I just hear, "Hey, Officer Tillman, that was crazy, right?" And so Adrian ended up surviving the whole ordeal. I went to the hospital that day, and I ended up buying this kid a hat because he loved hats. So I go to the hospital. I'm sitting down at the hospital bed next to his side, just talking to him about second chances. And what's interesting is his dad showed up, his whole family started showing up, and keep in mind, hey, we're not fans of cops. But for about an hour, we put all of our cat and mouse games aside. I'm laughing with Adrian, his dad, and we're hanging out in a new light. And it's not to say the fact that we were friends, it's not to say the fact that I agree with their lifestyle or vice versa, but we had a common thing, which was a love for his son. And it made me realize that if we lead with love, it can cover a multitude of sins. It can cover a multitude of things. So Adrian ended up surviving, and I actually talked to Adrian. Adrian went with me recently to one of my presentations, and I tell that story when I speak on stages. And it was so cool for him it was a full circle moment for him to be on that stage with me and be able to introduce him to the audience. And still talk to him probably once a month or so and just kind of checking up on him. And he's figuring out life. He's up and down. He's still young in his early 20s trying to figure it all out. But man, he's somebody that wants to do the right thing and he has a good heart. But he definitely has a journey just because sometimes we are a product of our environment. And so that's what he's trying to navigate through now.
Yeah. There's so many, you call them parents, but they certainly don't perform the parent role. I mean, they had a kid and they don't teach them respect. I got to tell you this, I'm going on a tangent here because that's what I do sometimes, but just this weekend, our next door neighbor, Joe, when we moved in this house a few years ago, Joe was the first man to come over and him and his wife welcomed us to the neighborhood. And he's from Haiti originally. That's what I love about our neighborhood because it's very, very eclectic here.
That's cool.
We're, as the white guys, are the minority here. I'm telling you.
Wow.
And I love it. It's good because a lot of people in this neighborhood only speak Spanish, but I love it. And Connie does too. So anyway, I'm up here working on the podcast and it was a beautiful weekend. I had the windows open and Joe's loud and I could hear him talking. And I just thought he was talking. I figured he's talking to Connie back there, my wife. And next thing you know, my phone goes off and my wife's saying, "Get out here now." So I take off running out back and a kid was beer fishing And this is private property back here. We're on a lake, and Joe had asked him to leave. There was private property, and the kid had no respect whatsoever. Although he wanted respect, showed no respect. An altercation. He jumped the fence and attacked Joe.
Wow.
So by the time I got out there, he had already jumped back across the fence, and all he was doing was calling Joe everything in the book and saying, "I will come back and kill you."
Wow.
So I'm on the phone calling Orange County deputies to come over, and they respond out with 4 people, and which kind of shocked me because I know Orange County is a busy place for police. And his mom comes along later on, and she wants to apologize, and she's making up excuses for her son. I'm thinking, right there's the problem. You didn't teach him responsibility. You didn't teach him respect. You didn't teach him how to talk to other people. You get what you give most of the time. So it's the fact that you're giving your time to talk to these young people, that's a great calling. Because, and this is corny, the kids are our future.
They are. Well, I always tell adults when I talk in these big rooms to police officers or wherever, I'm like, you guys can write these kids off if you want. You can call them every name in the book, but there's going to be a day where they're changing your oxygen tank at the senior home. What kind of kid do you want doing that?
Good point. They might be changing your Depends.
Exactly. Because one day or another, if you get what you invest in, and so you better invest it in the right way because you're going to be dependent on them one day.
Yeah. But I can just see, that guy talked crap to me when I was a kid. They can wear that Depend for 5 days.
Yeah, here goes your oxygen line. They're just going to, do one of these things.
Yeah. Oh, and I apologize to our listeners for going off on a tangent, but it's important. It's important that if you're going to be a parent, be a parent.
So important, man. And I that was one of the things I saw a lot of times at the school is just sometimes the parents were actually worse than the kids. And then when you actually meet the parents, you realize why the kid has the issues he had is because the parent was never meant to be a parent in the first place.
Right. And you've seen the same thing I have, especially in some of the rougher neighborhoods where there's no love shown towards the children. I mean, they just yell at them and snap at them and they jerk them up. And boy, it just really ticks me off.
Yeah, exactly.
And it seems, well, maybe because I'm a granddad now, I got 5 granddaughters, and we are always taking up for our grandkids where my kids are telling us, you would never let us get away with that.
That's all. I mean, it's the same.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same. The exact same.
But you spoil the crap out of your grandkids, then you send them home to mom and dad.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And we got to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you have created a business here that is just falling in step with your ideals and your beliefs. This Breaking Barriers United. Everybody, please check that out. Yeah, it's very impressive. So you have done a lot in your career already. What are future plans for Ryan Tillman?
Man, that's a great question. So I haven't made this announcement publicly yet. We're still in the process.
Wait. Exclusive.
This
right
is
here on Game of
exclusive.
Crimes.
This is matter of fact, this is probably the first podcast I'm actually going to be saying this on. So, so very, very exclusive. I talk to kids, as I said, all the time. And one of the messages I'm always telling these kids is sometimes you got to go be the change you want to see. That's why I think God opened the door for me into law enforcement. I had issues with it. And so sometimes you just got to go be the very thing that you hate. California is a very, very gorgeous place. I always say California is probably one of the most gorgeous places to live in the world. Not just the country, but the world. But unfortunately, the way California has been ran has been terrible, politically speaking. We've made it one of the unsafest cities in the country. We've made the quality of life one of the worst quality of life in the country. We have pushed out businesses. We have pushed out people. We have driven up inflation even more so. It's just been terrible. And matter of fact, quite frankly, a lot of people have left California and gone to Florida. So
or Texas.
Yeah, or Texas. Yeah, Tennessee. And so recently, after praying about it and kind of asking God, what's the next part of my life? I've actually been exploring the opportunity of running for governor of California. So yeah. So that's a pretty big deal.
Holy cow.
Yeah, man. And a lot of people have told me before I actually really took it serious, I asked people in my circle of influence about this and would they support me? And they said, I'm very surprised that you are going to do this, but I'm not surprised that you're going to do this because if there's anybody that can do it, it's you. You've basically taken on one of the biggest social issues in our lifetime and took it head on and made a lot of deep impact. And if there's anybody that can do such a big job, it's you. So people will ask, do you have any political experience? And I tell people, I've been unconventionally campaigning for the last 8 years of my life, unbeknownst to me. I've been in and out of the prison systems, talking to inmates and talking to correctional officers. I've served 12 years as a police officer. I said 2 years of those in the school, or 2 years of those doing quality of life, dealing with homeless people. I've built a business, a successful business. I've consulted for businesses. I built relationships with some of the biggest influential people in our world just by God's grace and God's favor. So all the things that politicians work a whole career to try to obtain, I've been able to do it in the matter of 8 years, especially even with the influence that we've built online. So I said, we live in 2025 where conventional politics is no longer conventional anymore. And we need somebody that's unconventional. We need the guy that's not a politician and a guy that's a man of the people. So I said, you know what, why not? And so one thing I realized, and I'm not trying to make this podcast political or not just because it's not a political show, for the sake of this topic, you know, we live in a blue state. It's a very heavily blue state, and we've had a Democratic governor for quite a long time. I am running as a Republican, but I'm bringing it up because I'm not the Republican that people think. I'm a very moderate guy who brings balance. I have a lot of conservative values, and all of my values are centered and based on the Bible and my relationship with Jesus Christ. But at the same time, I have a passion, a heart for people. And so I think we need somebody like that that can actually win over a state like California, because California is still very much a very blue state. I believe I have the ability to win over moderate Democrats as well as independents and get them not to vote for a Republican or Democrat, but vote for a candidate that can turn around California and make it the golden state for the golden age. So that's my political movement right there.
There's your campaign logo, Golden State for the Golden Age.
Yeah, I know.
Wow, that's holy cow. So let me ask, how old are you?
I'm 37. I'll be 38 in a few months.
Excellent. I love it. I tell you what, I mean, here in the South, we can vote in whatever state we want to. You just use a different name. You know that, right?
Hey, you know what? Hey, so you can get away with it. It's 2025. You can get away with those things.
Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding.
Just don't tell me about it. I had no idea what was going on.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. What I'm hearing here is, wow, we might get a governor, not just California, but any state that uses common sense.
Man, we've gotten away from that somehow. We've gotten away from that. And literally, if you really think about my platform is not based on any scientific algorithm, math equation, some scientific study. It's not based on any of that. It's based on common sense. Every police video I break down, every interaction with people is just based on removing emotion and just seeing what you're seeing for what it is. And a lot of times, especially when it comes to politics, even the current state of affairs that we're living in right now, a lot of people on the left side of things don't like our president. And it's not because they don't like what he's doing. It's just because they just don't like him. So I always tell people, remove the person from politics and focus on the issues. And if you can look at the issues for what they are and the policies for what they are, would you still vote the same way? And for me, that's changed over time. I actually grew up in a Democratic household. My family is still very much Democratic. And over time, as I've gotten my relationship closer with God, I compare and measure policies and politics up with the Word of God. And that's how I've made a lot of my changes in my life. And so if you can remove emotion out of anything, it might get you to see from a different lens. And with that lens that you see through now, it might just allow you to change your perspective on politics.
I love it. I love it, man. You talk about having a set of stones to run for governor of the state of California.
Why not, man? They say if you shoot for the moon, you might land on the stars. The way I look at it, man, if we win, then phenomenal, we win. But even if we lose, we still win.
Yeah. So I'm behind you. I can't vote for you, but if I were in California, I would.
But you have a podcast that touches the hearts of everybody. And so for those listeners out there that are in California, or you have relatives that live in California, make sure you tell them to go look into this guy, Ryan Tillman, because,
Absolutely.
I want to be your next governor for California. We want to go back to Cali.
Wow. Do you have a campaign site yet?
Not yet. So we're in the process of getting our campaign site built. Hopefully that should be pretty soon. Our team is growing. The election is actually, the primary election is June of 2026. And the general election is November 2026. As it looks right now, it looks like the Democrats are getting ready to potentially get behind Kamala Harris again to run for governor. So if I was to get through a primary, I would run against Kamala Harris, probably most likely in the general election. And so that's why I keep telling Republicans need somebody that can beat somebody like Kamala Harris. And I think we can. I think based on my track record and who I am, I think we can do it. And so we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be a fun journey. It is definitely a difficult task. It's a huge mountain to climb, but I've never been afraid of doing hard work and doing hard things.
Excellent, brother, man. I'm proud of you. Wow.
I appreciate that, man.
I've never really known anybody that ran for governor.
No.
My best friend from high school was in the state legislature, but that's the closest he came. I thought he'd been a great governor, but.
Oh, man. Well, thanks, Steve. I appreciate it, man.
That's outstanding. And so we're coming towards the end here, but there's still a couple questions I want to ask you. And I just remembered you had a famous, I guess he's a former football player, on your show recently, Terry Crews.
Oh yeah, Terry Crews. Yeah, actor, celebrity. Yep.
What's that all about? What was going on there? I haven't watched the episode.
Oh man, you have to. It's so good, man. But Terry Crews, he's a major A-list actor. He's on not the Pyramid. That's Michael Strahan, who's also another friend. But Terry Crews is on America's Got Talent.
Yeah,
he's been on Friday, White Chicks, you name it.
I love it. I think he's an excellent actor, and I love him on America's Got Talent.
Yeah, so we have a show called Switched on YouTube, and what Switched is an opportunity where we switch the roles between law enforcement and civilians, and so we basically recreate real police incidents that have occurred, and we utilize simunitions and all sorts of props and recreate, so active shooters, you name it. So I met Terry at an event a few years ago. He and I kind of hit it off. We became friends. I asked him if he'd be willing to come on our show, and so he came on. Wow. And man, his mind was just blown. We put him through an active shooter scenario. We did some hostile subject calls, and his mind was blown. But he's a phenomenal guy. And the best thing about Terry, man, he is a humble heart. He didn't come in there with this gripe towards law enforcement. He came in with an open mind to see it for what it was, and he walked away from that a changed man. And so he's not the only celebrity we've had on. We've had rappers like Redman on. We've had this guy named DJ Envy on. And we don't just do celebrities either. We've had city council people. We've had teachers. And so it's been a great, great opportunity to do that type of show and that type of setting.
Wow, that's phenomenal. What everybody knows about Terry Crews is he can make his pec muscles just
all the time. I mean, that's, yep, exactly. Yep.
I love it because he got such a great sense of humor, especially somebody that's so successful at his level and everything that he does. Holy cow.
Such a good guy, such a phenomenal human being.
Now, and also, I failed to mention this with your book, again, that's Happy Eyes. And I read the story about how you got that nickname from your wife. But you got a foreword from another very well-known individual, Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. So
tell our listeners who Dak is.
So Dak Prescott is currently the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Woohoo!
And man, he's such a good dude. I met him years ago. He had pledged some money to increase the relationship between law enforcement and the community. He and I got connected through a mutual friend, and we hit it off. I flew to Dallas, and me and my wife went to dinner with him, and just a phenomenal stand-up human being on and off the field. And so, yeah, we connected throughout the years, and when I wrote my book, I asked him if he'd be willing to write the foreword, and he said, bro, absolutely. And so he's another one of those friends in my wheelhouse that, just good people, man. I love to get behind good people, not because of their status or their stature, but just because they have a good heart. And Dak is one of those that has one of the purest hearts with the purest motives.
And I'm encouraged to hear that. I've never gotten to meet the man, but we see how many sports stars are out there that aren't making the smartest decisions. Now they've got all the money and they're getting in trouble all the time. And you kind of look at them, that's phenomenal that you're the best at the career that you've chosen. But the bottom line is you're playing a game. Now you think you're smarter. You think you're better than everybody else. So it's encouraging to hear that Kirk Cousins is the same way. I watched him on the Netflix special Quarterbacks. And just already thought highly of him, but because of his Christian background and standing up and showing he's a Christian. But then after watching his family life and you feel like you kind of get to know him a little bit because you see him on TV for a little bit. So it's very encouraging to hear that about Dak. A
lot of these guys are, obviously we can't say they all are because they're by no means they are, but a lot of the celebrities that I know, Michael Strahan is another one. That guy would give his shirt off his back for anybody. And he and I have gotten to have a good relationship throughout the years. And so it's really cool to see a side of them that not often a lot of people get to see. And with Dak, he's just one of those guys that his legacy is going to live on well beyond the game of football. His nonprofit organization called Faith Fight Finish was started to bridge the divides between law enforcement and the community. It was started to devote money and time to research for cancer because his mom passed away from colon cancer. It was also started to drive the money towards mental health because his older brother Jace took his life by suicide. So it's not just about the game of football for him. It's about leaving an impact in this world. And so that's why I get behind people that have that mindset.
Excellent. All right. So I got one more question for you. You got any words of wisdom? Is there anything that you had changed in your life that we could learn from the wisdom that you've gained from that?
I would just say, I'm going to leave it with this, is listen to the voice of God and just be obedient to what he tells you to do. It sounds so simplistic, but if you do that, I was reading this scripture a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to pull it up just because lately I've been reminded, and I've been coming back to it a lot lately. But it says in Joshua 1:8, it says, study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all you do. And it really resonated with me because a lot of times we're always chasing success, or we're chasing being the best that we can, but oftentimes we put away the thing that he's told us to do, which is study his word and meditate on it day and night. And the reason he asks us to meditate on it day and night is because it's going to give you the wisdom you need to make the decisions in all you do, including being repentant of your sins.
Yes.
And if you do those things, man, just hold on, and God is going to do some amazing things. When I talk about the governor's race, the reason why I want to do this is because, number one, it's a very, very hard thing, but that's a great place for me to activate faith and show the world, look at God, not me. If I were to win being the governor of California, people wouldn't say, dang, who is this guy, Ryan Tillman? People are going to say, man, it's only because of God that this guy is in there. Well, he should get all the glory in everything that we do. And so if there's any advice that I can say, is just be obedient to him, put one foot in front of the other. And if you do that, God will take care of the rest, and just hold on tight, because God will take you in places you never imagined.
Bro, that is so true. Look at me. I'm sitting here talking to Ryan Tillman, future governor of California. Holy cow, this redneck hillbilly. I'm doing good, right?
Oh, man.
Hey, listen, before you go.
We will see.
Well, we're praying for you, man.
All right,
you'll
Steve,
be on the list.
Steve, thank you so much, man, for just giving people like me a platform and just an opportunity to just share my heart. And, you're doing the Lord's work, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, and, I get criticized for it. I said this on the last interview. I'm going to continue to do the Lord's work. And if you don't like it, you can always go listen to another podcast. I'm not changing.
So that's the beauty of the country we live in, man. Go where you want to.
That's right. That's right. And just before you go, you can find Ryan here on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on X, on LinkedIn, all at Breaking Barriers United. Breaking Barriers United. And his website is RyanTillmanSpeaks.com, and Tillman is Tillman, 2 L's in there. And I showed you his book. You can get it on Amazon, Happy Eyes, Becoming All Things to All People. If you go to the Game of Crimes website, click on the book list, you'll see his book there at the top of the list. I'll put it out there the same day that his episode comes out. Ryan, what an honor and a pleasure, brother. I tell you what, I usually say this at the beginning, but I sound sissy when I say about fangirling a little bit about having you on the show because of what you've done with your life. You've heard me say it before on here, ladies and gentlemen, is law enforcement, or anybody that goes into public service, is a public servant, including the president. The fact that our people choose a career that puts them in a position to help others, they're dedicating their lives to helping others. There's no higher calling, in my opinion. So the fact that you're doing what you're doing and you're continuing to do that, and you're bringing understanding between communities that look down on law enforcement, you're bringing in understanding to law enforcement professionals who may not be looking at things through the right lens, and help them to understand, hey, yes, we have a responsibility to protect and serve, but that serve comes in there. You got to serve, you're serving your fellow man. So God bless you, brother. It's been such an honor to have you on here.
Man, it's an honor. And man, I can't wait to meet you in person. It's going to be good. I think, what is that? It's in a few months, in May, right?
Yep. End of May.
Man, it's going to be great. So yeah, thank you again for having me. If there's ever anything I could do, man, you let me know. And anybody that's following or anybody that's listening to this, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me through the website, or you can actually even email me at info@breakingbarriersunited.com, and I'll connect with you that way as well. So thank you guys so much. I love you guys. And make sure if you're in Cali, you know somebody in Cali. If you see my name on the ballot next year, you guys know who to pick.
You heard it from the horse's mouth here. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for continuing to come back every week and join me here on Game of Crimes. I love to brag about the guests that we bring on here. It's not anything that I'm doing. It's just doors that are presented to me, and I try to open those doors and see where they go. But you know what? You got to keep coming back. This is the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game that anybody's ever going to play, and we call it the Game of Crimes. God bless you all. See you next week.
Take care.